Well, a number of my followers have asked me to respond to Boris Johnson's conference speech at the Conservative Party conference. Of course, I didn't watch it myself, so I had to catch up with it. I'm too busy to watch the buffoon in action at a party conference, where he's, of course, saying one thing to get a little bit of applause with his robust rhetoric, and of course then disappears to do something quite different, which is what he's done virtually all his life, I would suggest. But what they was particularly incensed about, my followers, was his use of the word guts. Only the Conservative Party have got the guts to do something. Well, let me just pick up on a few things that they don't seem to have the guts to do, and given the fact that they have been in power for 11 years. So there's no point in them pretending that they're trying to just get things right, and they'll get right, as soon as these things settle down a little bit. They've been there 11 years, making a complete and total pig's ear of it. So let me just run a few things past Boris and his team of losers, if they really wanted to show some guts. First of all, they'd have to be honest with the British people. They'd have to be really honest with the British people and explain that it isn't possible to run a national debt somewhere in the region of approaching £3 trillion. It just isn't possible. And there's no point in trying to increase tax to get out of it. It just isn't. It's spitting in the wind. It's absolutely hopeless. They're going to have to cut spending. Now, I didn't see anything at the Tory party conference reported that they had any intention of cutting spending, and I've made this point before when I did a video on the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who was a rank amateur. So I'll just run through it again. Now, I've run through it before. I ran through it nearly 10 years ago with Andrew Neil on the Politics Show, but it bears repeating, and I'm going to repeat it. And I'm going to go on repeating it until somebody takes some bloody notice. First of all, you have to slash spending. You can't afford vanity projects like high-speed rail 2, which is going to cost 100 billion and rising. You can't afford index-linked pensions for politicians, folk at the town hall and civil servants, which accounts for hundreds and hundreds of billions of the national debt. And it's off balance sheet, which is particularly dangerous, but it's there nevertheless. These index-linked pension schemes are no longer available to ordinary mortals. They've had to go because they're too expensive in the private sector. And that's something which is just an actuarial fact of life. We can't afford to have higher tax in the shape of employment tax. Even Churchill, whose command of economics, let's be honest, was not brilliant, but even he knew that you cannot tax your way into prosperity. And his quote was, if you trying to tax your way into prosperity is like standing in a bucket and trying to lift yourself up by the handles. It simply can't be done. We have a National Health Service which has 1.2 million employees, less than half of whom have any medical qualifications at all. The procurement policy is little short of criminal. The management is Byzantine, but every year the NHS gets more and more money for more and more failure. The rewarding of failure in government goes on and on. Every time we have an honours list, you see names there of people who have drastically failed. So we can't really afford to go on and on like we are. And we need, Boris, somebody to have the guts to tell the people the truth of the matter. That person clearly isn't you, or doesn't seem to be anybody in the cabinet. So see what you can do about quangos, for example. There are nearly 1,000 quangos, which are costing us, it's difficult to actually estimate, but in the tune of £300 billion a year. This is monstrous. We can't go on spending and spending and spending, borrowing and printing money. We're going to have to grip it sooner or later. Personally, I think it's already too late. I think you've left it too late. But if you follow the golden rules and cut spending and slash spending and half spending, don't raise taxation, get rid of regulations, we're far over-regulated. One of the reasons we don't have enough heavy goods vehicle drivers is for the simple reason that trying to become a heavy goods vehicle driver, and I used to be one, incidentally, is very expensive and very time-consuming. It's too difficult. It's just very difficult indeed to get there. So consequently, we don't have any, or we don't certainly have enough. And it's not just, of course, Great Britain. Let's stop pretending it's Great Britain. It's the continent as well, because all of them run by the same rules. We're still paying the European Union exit tax of £20 billion a year. And we've had no concessions of any note at all. Lord Frost talks a good story, and he's actually got the negotiating time. He's thumping the table, and he's given them another 6 weeks. Well, this has now been for 4 years, everybody. It's been 4 years we've been negotiating with the European Union. Sooner or later, we're going to have to tear up the protocols and say, look, I'm sorry, it isn't working. We did our best. We negotiated in good faith. We gave away perhaps far too much anyway. We probably conceded far too much. And we're going to have to go our own way. And if the French don't behave themselves, they will have to suffer accordingly. So what we can take, for example, one idea is to take continental European Union imports, except the French, nothing from the French, with no tariffs. We'll only tariff French goods or something like that. We start having to get tough. And let's look about green policies. Net zero is unbelievably expensive. Boris and you haven't even costed net zero. You don't even understand what it means. It's going to cost hundreds of billions, all right? It's something we can't afford, just to set an example to the rest of the world, which are laughing and take no notice. All it does is transfer jobs from Great Britain to the Far East, who are using old-fashioned fossil fuels for their energy because they're the things that are reliable and they're the things that work, whether you like it or not. So we've got to stop all this posturing and this nonsense that I suspect you're being inspired by your wife, Corrie, as indeed Cameron before him was inspired, if that's the right word, to this greenery buffoonery by his wife, Samantha. Now, I know it's very difficult for beta males to stand up to alpha women, but you're going to have to take a stand, and that's guts. So coming back to your own word, Boris, guts. You're going to have to show some guts, and the first thing you're going to have to do is start telling the truth to the nation about the state of the accounts and start taking it from there. Or resign, remove yourself before the electorate removes you or the Conservative Party removes you. You're a clown, you're a great after-dinner speaker, glass of wine in the hand, bumbling your way through a few jokes. It's absolutely marvellous, but you're at the helm, all right? You're the commanding officer now. You're not president of the mess committee. So be a good fellow and get a grip or get out. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research-based, and I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.